What it will become, in the future, who knows? I mean, that's up for debate. We'll see what happens. Trends are changing. Things are changing. What is up, everybody? How you living? No putts given. You thought this was maybe Tone Loc or RFK Jr. It's neither. This is a post PGA show.
The gift that keeps giving.
Man, I'll tell you what. It is a thing. It's a thing. So we're coming live to you from Bronchitisville here. So we'll I'll let Tony do most of the talking. Anyway, I did, as I'm laying around this weekend trying to not die, I did happen to watch a little life goals. And Pebble Beach, man, the place is gorgeous. Have you ever played it?
No, because it's like $1,000 a round about going on these days. So
I don't know. It's expensive. It's up there. It violates Tony Covey's #1 rule of golf, right?
Yes, it's definitely not for the poors.
Definitely not for the poors. No, but Rory was awesome. He looks complete, dare I say. It was a good deal.
I mean, we're not doing this again, though. Like, he does this, it seems like every year, wins one early or plays well early, and then we start talking about the Masters, and so here we are.
I know.
Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him win it, but come on.
It's almost like you knew my follow-up question was going to be, can he beat Scheffler? Can he?
On any given day, but yeah.
Yeah. The only thing notable, I was looking through his bag. He's tailor-made staff for basically 14 clubs through the bag. The only thing that was kind of interesting, he did switch to the TP5 from the TP5X.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things stood out.
What would that do for him?
Like, why interesting because he mentioned the greenside spin rates being higher, and in terms of any golf ball that is going to be played on tour, any golf ball that has any appreciable market share, any golf ball that doesn't come out of a factory most people haven't heard of in Vietnam, it's going to be the spinniest around the green of just about anything. Trade-off is, right, past iterations have been kind of spinny everywhere.
Right.
But it's kind of interesting, too, that he noted that it launched lower than the TP5X, which I thought was a little interesting. I think the keyword might be launch versus fly kind of look. And we'll see what it looks like when we robot test the newer models. All test in the works for later this year. But, past iterations of TP5 have kind of been like lower launching but higher flying. So kind of like that kind of thing. Little Bellata-ish in that sense. So, I can see it. And then the other thing that stood out, like you said, 14 clubs in the bag. He has previously been a K-Star, Vokey K-Star from time to time, or low, some variety of low bounce K. So interesting to see the lob wedge spot in the bag now occupied by a TaylorMade Milt Guide. It's a very good wedge. So
clearly
won several time most wanted winner there. So.
I was gonna say, all right. Well, speaking of that, we'll dive right into wedges. Some new equipment. We're largely past the, mega release several weeks. So all the new stuff, the big, big picture, exciting, mainline stuff from all the big brands is out. It's aware. People can start demoing it.
It's trickle season now, right? Where the flood is over, and now it's just a slow little drip, drip, drip of new gear.
Yeah. So one thing that got dripped out, you talk about wedges, the Vokey A grind. We saw this one pop up very quickly. What is it? Why should I care?
Yeah, this was, the last A was kind of like the last WedgeWorks release of SM9 era, and now it's, coming at what I would assume to be about the midway point of SM10, and really simple, like it's an L grind with that ribbon part shaved off, that kind of area where there's noticeable sole contour. kind of just trim that off to create a grind that is often described as like faster through the turf.
Yeah.
You got one there? Mine are.
I do have one here.
There you go. So you can kind of see more of a true kind of wider. It ends up playing like a wider sole wedge, like a wider sole take on L, but you do lose some of that heel toe and trailing edge relief. So, as I've said before, I feel like wedge grinds kind of exist on this continuum between versatility and forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a case where you're training a little bit of the versatility of the L to get a little bit more forgiveness, but you're maintaining that lower bounce design.
Yeah. Yep.
So there you go.
There you go. Straightforward. It's, again, just another option, right? Another
option.
I
mean, when you think about wedge lineups evolving to the point where most manufacturers now have like one low bounce lob wedge grind option. And Vokey, what are we at, like 4 or 5 by the time you do? So it's
17 kabillion.
Yeah, in that kind of 6 degrees of bounce and below, 4 to 6 range. So again, lots of options.
Yep, lots of options, and then a couple other product releases. 2 different ends of the spectrum a little bit. So let's talk PXG first. I did not expect to see this coming. If you had asked me a year ago if this product was going to be viable, I'd say, well, maybe, but it would take a pretty big shift, I guess, in identity, maybe a little bit. So, like, let's talk about the clubs themselves, but then even more importantly, like, what might this tell us about this journey of PXG and kind of where it's at in terms of where it sees itself in the market?
Yeah, so Wildcat, this is a new set, I guess it's really a line. You can buy it as a full bag bundle, they're calling it, but it's effectively a new line of clubs. I think fair to say evolution of, was it 0211 or 0311Z?
You had 0211 originally.
Yeah, there we go. So kind of, and for those who don't remember, that was like PXG's kind of set targeted at beginning golfers. And so that's kind of where Wildcat slots in. They describe it. PXG Wildcat Golf Club Collection is the go-to set for beginners and occasional golfers to maximize fun.
I love the phrase occasional golfers because that doesn't fit me in the golf space. That does, like, if someone were trying to sell that to me,
I'd buy that bowling ball.
Yeah, exactly. For occasional bowlers, like, that probably fits. Occasional, laundry doers or something.
There you go.
Work in there, yeah.
So really interesting. So the set itself, and you can again buy these individually, but driver, fairway wood, hybrid, irons. What are the irons? They're in the set. It's not. Let's see. What do you get?
4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, so you can get. So these are available only 7, 8, 9, and 2 wedges, a pitching wedge and a sand wedge. So the idea, right? It's described as a full bag bundle, but this is not a 14 club bundle. We counted. I think we got to 7. Is that right?
I think it was 9 total.
9, I can count. Yeah, there we go. 9. You're right.
It's an odd number between 5 and 11.
Yeah, it was one of them. So again, like you looking at these, like looking at the irons, very clearly super gamer proven.
Yeah.
Big honking offset for sure. Driver, I think, the interesting thing about the driver, 16 degrees aloft. So really designed to help guys get it up in the air and kind of reminiscent again. This is not.
I like that though.
Yeah, but it's not billed as for senior golfers, but I remember one day I was like at this demo day and this guy was struggling. He looked like he was 70, struggling, banging away on the 9-degree driver because that's what he told the Wilson rep at the time that he played. And he's hitting like these low, just no loft shots in the
be under. He's hitting it under a park bench.
Yeah, like, so Wilson rep hands him a 12-degree, says, "Here, try this." Guy hits the highest ball he's hit straight, flips it over, looks at the loft, hands it back to the rep, and leaves. So. I think there's a little bit of a mindset issue here, and maybe new golfers don't have that. Don't find any stigma attached to a 16-degree driver, but it's
Who
all part of
cares?
being
Yeah.
easy to hit, have fun. And the only other thing I'll point out, the Blackhawk putter, again, available separately, $300, and it does have the pickup pocket in it, so you don't have to bend over to pick up your ball, and
Love the
unless it's
pickup
in the
pocket.
hole. So
Love the pickup pocket.
yeah,
What is, again, I love this product because it's going after, like I said, the occasional golfer. It simplifies things. You don't need 14 clubs,
I need
right?
16. I don't
You
understand. I
you
don't
need,
understand this even a little bit.
yeah, relative to, yeah. But if you don't have a certain swing speed, you're not going to create enough separation between clubs to warrant necessarily having that many clubs. So if you're an occasional golfer to the degree, you're playing 5, 7 times a year, whatever the case is, or a golfer who doesn't necessarily swing it that fast, I love it. I love the approach. I just didn't think I'd see this from PXG necessarily. So what is PXG, like, what does this tell you, or what questions?
Well, I mean, on one hand, they have, again, done similar before, right? 0211Z was similar, not a full set um, in terms of, a full set being 14 clubs
Right.
available that way. So it's not entirely dissimilar, but it is kind of interesting to focus on the fun aspect for PXG. And not really, and do it in a way that doesn't necessarily cut corners, right? This is not a cheap box set that you would find at Walmart by any stretch, right? It's still,
I almost said box set and I stopped
yeah,
myself.
yeah, it's a bundle.
It's
It's not
not,
a, you
it's not
could
that.
theoretically bundle and get it all in one box, but it's a bundle, not a box set.
Right.
I guess let's go with that. But yeah, I think it's just kind of more of the positioning PXG as a brand for everybody versus the when they first came out, like the upper tier of elitism based on price.
Not
Uh,
the pores. Not the
right,
pores.
definitely. Yeah, you're not. This is not a set for the Pebble Beaches of the world, or Pebble Bitches, as the case may be. But yeah, it's just kind of an evolving brand, continuously evolving brand. That's like pretty much everybody else, trying to find a way to reach a wider audience. And so here you go. That said, I don't know necessarily if it is for a specific type of beginner for sure, because
Sure.
well, we can go line by line and say, hey, yeah, okay, maybe 1,500 sounds like a lot, but we decided 9 clubs.
Let's
Final
just go
decision.
back.
You're getting 9 clubs. You're
Yeah.
getting the bag. You're getting a dozen balls and a hat. So you can kind of get there and be in line with market prices. It's not a discount offering, and so maybe that's what a beginner might be looking for. But if you're a guy who, again, maybe you play occasionally and like nice stuff, or you're a beginner who wants nice stuff, I understand that. And a lot of things I do, I never buy the cheapest anything unless it's probably a cheeseburger at McDonald's. Um, so I get it. And again, evolving PXG.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of other brands that are evolving perhaps and changing, and even if ever so slightly, like, again, you look at the product itself and that you have the product, but like I said, it also kind of gives you an indication as to maybe what the brand is trying to do. I agree. I think PXG, maybe a kindler, gentler, more inclusive of all golfers type deal.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's important to mention, right? Like their prices are at some points in time the lowest of any reputable brand, and
yeah,
they fluctuate a little bit, but they are on their worst day now, save maybe the fully milled sugar daddy wedges, in
right.
line with industry norms. So,
Hmm.
but go on, you're saying.
So similar kind of question, but Wilson Dynapower. Um, let's talk through kind of what it is, and then again, I want to ask you the same question: like, what might this tell us about Wilson and where it's headed? Because for a long time, people didn't take Wilson seriously. Maybe it's been maybe 20 years and change, or however long.
Yeah, certainly as a better players brand in some respects. I think you could
Sure.
argue that some of their forged irons have been absolutely outstanding. But we've talked about this
Sure.
before, like
Golf ball.
golf ball for sure, but by and large, credibility and more so perhaps even credibility with the better player begins and ends with the metalwoods and most specifically the driver. And
Mm-hmm.
Wilson has not been a serious driver company for the better player for a considerable amount of time. I think that's a reasonable way to phrase it.
I think that's fair. So let's look. Yeah, and it does. It's always interesting in that you're right. I think the role of the metalwood is paramount right in there. So does this driver tell you anything about Wilson being more serious for better golfers?
I think, well, first, that there are three of them. So now you're getting into that complete lineup, and none of them really qualifies as like this ultralight kind of, maybe okay for some senior golfers, but a throwaway product for the rest of us.
Mm,
So that's a component of the story. And then just, we go through the individual models, but I think the thing that stands out is the fact that Wilson now has an LS in the lineup. Is
yeah.
yeah. I mean, you can say a lot of things about Wilson, but sort of as a company you would expect an LS driver from. No, I wouldn't have seen that coming. And so, yeah, we have this Dynapower LS front to back flip weighting, so movable weighting, carbon construction in the crown and sole. I mean, this is kind of like legitimate play at that space. Now, who's to say we're getting close to wrapping up most wanted testing, and also I'd point out too, like very clearly an attempt at a more aerodynamic shape as well. So all of these things that
Mm,
we've come to expect from the LS space, Wilson is now doing. We'll see how it stacks up in most wanted testing, but it's certainly nice to see Wilson making that effort to be credible with better players.
mm-hmm.
And then you kind of that middle of the bell curve option, continuing on the Dynapower Carbon. And then now we have a Dynapower Max as well, that is titanium construction. It's 9,000 plus total MOI, so not into that 10,000 space. I'm not going to be the guy to tell you that you need to be in that area. Like, I'm so fully aware of the trade-offs and what it costs a lot of guys to get there. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm. All right. What
But
else? Because yeah, keep going.
it's, and then, should we go into, I guess the other piece here, right, is that Wilson is talking about using AI to help design the
That's
drivers.
what I was going
And
to
if I'm
ask you.
Wilson, right, this certainly looks better than I'm using computers than going back to the days where I pulled in 10 guys off the street to see if they could do better than my R&D team. So we
Right.
are beyond the days of driver versus driver. Using AI, and they when John Barber wrote the story, talked to our former coworker Harry Nodwell about it, and it really is this idea of, for all the magic that AI gets credited with, ultimately what it's really doing in a lot of cases is just helping engineers iterate faster. Right? Like, hey,
Right.
try this, try this. Is this going to work? No, 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 no. Better yet, keep going. Better, worse. No, that one's worse. This one's better. All right, let's go down that path. And so here we go. So, you almost have to mention that you're using AI, but everybody is at this point. If you're not,
AI
um,
fatigue. AI
yeah, for
fatigue.
sure. I think that's a real thing. But I also think the companies that not, you're going to see they are going to fall behind. They're going to fall farther behind, and we're going to see that. I think particularly it's already very difficult for DTC brands, as an example,
Sure.
to compete in the metalwood space.
Right.
You can get away with player irons and even players distance irons because there's so much that the factories can do. There's so much that's already been done that you can borrow from. But when it gets into the metalwood space, you need
Mm,
AI to keep up. And so, just this fact that it's kind of throwing, yeah, Wilson's using AI, cool. But we have real engineers that kind of make the decisions along the way. That's really what we're dealing with here. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me again. We've seen year over year changes, and like so maybe the bottom was the driver versus driver debacle and kind of thing. And again, getting a name out there and all that stuff, understand that. But in terms of being seen as credible with the better players, etc., just at face value. Let's assume the performance is not the best, not the worst. Let's say it comes somewhere in the middle. Is that a step forward for Wilson?
Yeah, and I think too in a large scale driver test, if you're landing in the middle, well, right, like that's average. Most things by definition are average. So you're going to be in with the bulk of the drivers we test. And the other thing too is if you're in that average range, it means you're going to perform well for a lot of golfers.
Right.
And so that's where you go and start to say, all right, well, I can get a max, a Cobra or a Wilson Max for $500. That's a pretty good deal by compared to the market as a whole. I can get an LS or a Carbon for $549. It's not the deal of the century, but it's $100 less than a Titleist.
Sure.
And so, for some guys, that extra $100 isn't going to be anything.
Right.
But for others, $50 is going to be the reason why you buy a Wilson instead of a Callaway.
Or maybe it at least gets you to try it.
Yeah.
You say, hey, I'm going to try this and that. Like I said, a lot of times we'll see 3, maybe 4, but people have maybe their favorite brand, whatever that is. Maybe they have whatever they heard is the hot new thing, and again, it could be Callaway and TaylorMade. We see that a lot. Titleist Ping, depending, whatever. But
we have talked about this year after year after year. Like the numbers don't change. The average guy who goes into a big box store, does any type of demoing, is going to grab at most 3 to 4 drivers. That's right. It. And so, one of them's going to be a Callaway. And with everybody having 3, 4 models in their lineup, it gets even harder because, maybe 2 of them are Callaway, right? But just to make it simple, one's going to be a Callaway, one's going to be a TaylorMade, one's going to be a Titleist and or a Ping, right? And so you may never have a shot to get on the conversation. All you can hope for is that maybe somebody had a bad experience and doesn't want to try the. Let's say he doesn't want to try the Ping because he doesn't like turbulence, right? So that creates one spot. So if you can get your shot, that's ultimately like, yeah, you want to win, but you don't win until you get in the bag. And so you've got to be the reason or come up with a reason to be the 4th club.
Right.
I hope he comes back again tomorrow and chooses 4 more.
Right.
It's not typically how it works.
What about the rest of the Dynapower lineup? Again, this is going to be kind of their flagship lineup, not on the iron side, in terms of better player, but throughout the rest for sure. So what else do I need to know about the remaining Dynapower items?
That's a good question. I would say you need to know they exist. Well, it's tough because the fairway woods, the hybrids, they exist, but they're going to get lost in the shuffle with everything else. And it is very likely to be a trickle down thing where, hey, if I like the drivers enough, I'm going to go to the fairways and the hybrids, but
unlikely that somebody would just buy a Wilson hybrid.
Yeah. But, they look good. That's the thing.
They do look good.
You got Carbon, you got a Max here as well. Especially the fairway. When I'm looking at this address photo, I'm like, I could maybe live without the bold red stripe, but I could play those. Same deal, Max, Carbon. So you got choices. You're expanding your fitting capabilities, your reach, if you will. But I think again, like as you trickle through the bag, it becomes a tougher and tougher sell. If for no other reason, nobody replaces these with any regularity.
Yeah, it's a hard one. They tend to be, like I said, it's the trickle down or the trickle sideways, something where, maybe somebody gets a set of irons and they also need a fairway wood. Or, like I said, they do end up in the driver for whatever reason and they decide to take a look at a fairway wood. So,
but you do see, I will say, like looking at the hybrids, for example, you're running a good spectrum of, again, talking about that effort to compete for a broader audience. So you've got everything from a 17-degree 2 hybrid all the way up to a 6 hybrid.
Yeah.
It's almost surprised they don't have the 7 hybrid. That's becoming a thing this year, I think. But And same thing on the fairway woods, right? Now we've got a 13.5 degree. So we're getting serious there, and we're going up to a 7 wood again. Maybe you want a 9 wood in the mix, but as a smaller brand, it's tougher for Wilson to kind of justify that quantity of skiers.
Plenty of head cover opportunities, I think, anyway. What about the irons? Anything I should know about the irons?
The power holes are gone. That should be the headline. Wilson ditches the power holes.
Wilson, no
arguably
power.
the worst named technology in the history of golf. Your irons no longer have power holes. Swap that out for cup face. Again, 2 models continuing the theme. So you've got your standard Dynapower hole-free irons as your kind of that's your. I want to say it for everybody, but they are. The lofts are jacked, unapologetically jacked. 28 degree 7 iron, 42.5 degree pitching wedge. But again, it's fun to point that out. Go, oh, look at them. Go try them. See if you hit them high enough. See if they land soft enough. That's the only thing that matters. Forget about the loft. $900 steel shafts. And also this year, a new Max offering. And this is one of those ones where starting to see the kind of what we've talked about, this idea of more sensible lofts, if you will, ticking into the equation. So 30 degree 7 iron, 44 degree pitching wedge, not what you would call weak by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're struggling with the standard Dynapower, which is again more of a speed and distance play, you can get your loft here without bending. So
which I love. I mean, that's ultimately that's just helpful. So,
but no holes, no power holes. You shot no holes.
All right. Different topic. Like we said, the PGA Show gives and gives and gives. It gives you all sorts of things. We were down there. What were your takeaways? What give me a couple of things you loved, a couple of things you hated.
Yeah, I think you could argue, and it pains me to say this because it used to be my favorite part of the show, but it might be time to pull the plug on Demo Day.
Demo Day?
Yeah, which almost sounds blasphemous, but attendance was light, and granted, it was rainy and cold,
like
and so
45 and rainy.
Yeah, so you can chalk the attendance piece up to that, but when you see things like Titleist no longer on the range,
right?
Ping dramatically smaller, Callaway dramatically smaller. Yeah, pound per pound, Cobra and Shrixon kind of same as they've always been, but there's really not, and then throw in the fact that almost none of the shaft companies are there anymore, and so there's actually, in terms of things that you hit golf balls with, very little to demo. And so, it's a nice opportunity for some of the guys, like with their fancy GPS-enabled push carts and whatnot, to kind of show you what those can do in a wider space than you would get in the show hall. But in terms of actually having stuff to demo in the conventional sense, it keeps downsizing to the point. Like, I don't think I'd ever go again. There's no reason to. Especially if you want to demo stuff, go hit it indoors at indoor days, right? Most companies are set up there. And the reality is, too, by the time the show starts, most of the stuff you can go hit in a golf shop anyway. So Demo Day, I think.
So downer on Demo Day.
Yeah. It is interesting. So the official word from the PGA Show people is that this was the busiest show in 15 years. Couple ways to look at that. Again, you are seeing downsizing at the part of the OEMs. Like Titleist, same footprint, less stuff in the booth, less people in the booth. Cobra, smaller. Again, this year it was smaller. Last year it was smaller the year before that. TaylorMade obviously gone. Callaway, almost no equipment in their booth. Again, more of a meeting space and things like that. Ping, barely a booth. So there's, again, the big guys aren't there. And so if you believe in the theory that the PGA Show is like your mall, and the big guys have anchor stores, if they go, what happens? I don't know.
Right.
But in terms of, like, if you're going to count booths and go, 1, 2, 3, 4, there were likely. Now, I'll explain why I say likely, more than I've seen in quite a while, to the point where you had guys that were on what would be like the almost the exterior wall of the convention
Like
center.
perimeter of it.
I've
Yeah.
never seen booths there before. Now, part of the reason this is kind of the piece of it is that there were fewer food options in the equipment side that kind of took everything, all but just one or two little stands, and shoved it all the way down at the far end of the convention.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decent strategy, right? Because you got to walk through
Sure.
and see things just to get to the food. And it also did open up some floor space on the equipment side and even into the apparel side that got filled up. So in terms of the number, and yeah, some pickleball, paddle sports stuff there as well. But in terms of the number of booths, busy.
There were
likewise, foot traffic, more people than I've seen there in quite some time. Now this one to me is the biggest kind of. There's a gray area. This is kind of a wonky stat. To me, it's like the NGF's equivalent of rounds played.
Right. It's really a weather stat.
It is. Without kind of year over year over year over year, it's a weather stat. And so we knew on Tuesday afternoon, the main show starts Wednesday, and so we knew on Tuesday afternoon when the forecast called for 40, 45 degree weather and rain, that the show floor was going to be busy because all the guys who go down to the show, who actually go down to play golf, actually went to the show because golf would have been miserable. So certainly the show benefited from bad weather. But again, lots of booths, lots of encouraging things in terms of the number of companies I've never seen before. Now, you don't know, will they be back next year? Or is this kind of companies reacting too late to the golf room, which certainly has leveled off, shows signs of declining. So maybe too little, too late, but big picture positive. I think you have to come away with, this was a good year for the show. Demo day notwithstanding.
Yeah, it's my two big takeaways are, if you haven't been to the show before, and I get most people haven't, it's a lot.
Overwhelming at times. Like even for me, 15 years in, I'm like,
it's a lot to take in. It's like going to Vegas, where it's like, holy cow, there's stuff kind of like Vegas. A lot of bright lights, a lot of stuff, a lot to take in. So much stuff. But that's what it is. It's a spectacle to see.
And the transition to it has become a part. Like apparel's always going to be down there because, as much as I talk about on the equipment side, right? Titleist isn't showing you anything you haven't seen before. They're not signing any deals. There's no buyer for a pro shop who's walking in and going, "What is this? I've never seen this before." That's not happening. Whereas on the apparel side, you're buying fall of 25, if not spring of 26. So
for sure,
there's value there. But on what was the equipment side, it's really become a tech show.
It's really an apparel and tech show. Yeah.
I mean, so many simulator companies. I'm like, my God, like there's not
the number of software companies.
Yeah.
If you need software to run your country club or your course or whatever, apparently there's 742,000 choices.
Which is only 5 more than there are for simulators and launch monitor technologies.
Yeah. Now. And then stuff that you wouldn't even think. Yeah, it really is. To me, it's the main companies are there to help support the overall thing. But in terms of seeing anything new, it really is an apparel and tech show.
Yeah, it's gadgets or miscellaneous gadget show.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's fine. That's just kind of what it's become. What it will become, in the future, who knows? I mean, that's up for debate. We'll see what happens. Trends are changing. Things are changing. Speaking of which, what would you think about just wearing a monochromatic sweatsuit to play golf?
On one hand, it's ridiculous. On the other, I don't care. Like Jason Day wants to wear sweatpants to play golf. I don't care. It does, doesn't impact my life. I'm not one of these guys that diminishes the game. I'm not going to make the argument that's his office and he should dress appropriately for it. Like, he's playing a sport, man. You know. And so, hey, if the new thing is you can go right from the gym to the golf course, cool. Hey, stop. I probably wouldn't do it. I'm not a big sweatpants guy anyway. You know, Malbon makes pajama pants. We can talk, but strictly sweatpants not my thing. But yeah, I don't care. I know it's like some people are going to be irate about it and be like, "How dare he disrespect the sport like this?" Who cares? Who
I
cares?
love that it gets people riled up more than anything because, you know, it's like you said, it's one of those things where what Jason Day wears to play golf in has nothing to do with what I choose to wear. If I want, you know, doesn't matter. But to the degree that like people are like personally offended
It
by
is
how
to me like I'm just like, what's the limit? Like, not in terms of what he can get away with. I'm talking about what is the limit with respect to what Malbon can get away with in terms of we're just going to keep throwing this guy weirder and weirder shit and see if there is any point in time where he goes, I'm not going to wear this. He's,
well,
by mid-season, he's going to be out there in like a polka dotted tutu. And,
but
it'd be some kind of
it
crazy
kind of made me wonder,
around.
like PGA Tour dress code, like they have to wear pants. Okay, like does this, you know, does the establishment push back? And Malbon seems fine to be pushing those boundaries.
I mean, that's always been Steven's thing anyway. So,
yeah,
good for him. Good for his success. Yeah, I want to say 6 years ago, maybe at the show, I sat down with him. And it was one of those things where I was like, I don't know what to do with this guy, but his way of thinking is so far beyond where anybody else is right now. And so to kind of see like this has turned into a viable brand and it's gaining traction and he's doing it 100% his way.
mm-hmm.
This guy's golf sweatpants on the course at a PGA
on the
Tour
PGA
event.
Tour.
Okay.
Yeah, in a PGA Tour event. It's just I want to see kind of where it goes next and see, how.
Not my thing, but I'm fine with it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Anyway, that's a wrap up, man. We got through a lot of stuff there. Hopefully next week I won't be as dead. We'll see.
Yeah, good for you. You survived this one.
Well, we'll see. I got my throat spray. See what happens. We'll rock and roll from there. But you guys will have questions. Let us know. Find us, follow us on all the interwebs. Post your comments. Let us know what we can do to help you. Until then, we out.